There are so many different salt brands out there, but almost all of them have problems. What people think are insignificant or even healthy qualities of a salt are actually unhealthy. Everything you've been told about what qualities of salt make it healthy or unhealthy is a lie. I'm Jared Payne, and I'm a student of health and nutrition. I'll explain to you what to look for in a salt in order to make sure you can get the healthiest brand available. Stick around until the end, as I'll mention what I think is the healthiest brand of salt, which no one is telling you about. One of the most important things you need to know about your salt is how much lead is in it. That's right, lead. Almost all brands of salt have a major lead problem. Very few people will ever tell you that. So lead is a heavy metal which causes fatigue, trouble sleeping, headaches, infertility, kidney problems, birth problems, heart disease, brain damage, liver damage, and so on and so forth. Lead is so toxic that we need to measure it in parts per billion. Not milligrams, not micrograms, not parts per million, but parts per billion. For comparison, according to limits set by organizations or the FDA, it is illegal for bottled water to contain more than 5 parts per billion, and it is considered unsafe for tap water to contain more than 15 parts per billion, for water at a school fountain to contain more than 1 part per billion, and if candy contains more than 100 parts per billion of lead, it is considered unsafe. So even according to establishment guidelines, which are always more loose than they should be, extremely small amounts of lead are dangerous. One cause of this is that lead will accumulate in the body and it will eventually reach an amount that the body will no longer be able to tolerate. Now, what does lead have to do with salt? Well, if you look at the article on Lead Safe Mama about how much lead is in salt, which I will link in the description of this video, you will see that most brands of salt contain far too much lead to be worth eating. Try to find a brand of salt that has the least parts per billion of lead. Ones that have less than 30 parts per billion are best, but I wouldn't want to eat a salt brand that contains more than 100 parts per billion. I recommend emailing the company to get their test results on how much lead is in their salt. There are multiple studies showing that salt brands of all kinds contain microplastics. This should come as no surprise because the ocean is full of plastic floating around in it. What is surprising, however, is that even salts acquired from mining on land also contain microplastics. This is perhaps due to the manufacturing process and packaging material. According to a recent review, microplastics have been shown to cause oxidative stress, DNA damage, organ dysfunction, metabolic disorder, immune response, neurotoxicity, as well as reproductive and developmental toxicity. Microplastics may also be linked to a variety of chronic diseases. You will need to email the company to see how fine of a filter they use to filter out microplastics from their product. Ideally, the salt would also come in glass containers, which may be very hard to find, so that the packaging material will not contaminate the salt. It is common for salt companies to brag about all the trace minerals that they have in their salt. The implication here is that you're going to be getting a significant amount of things like zinc, calcium, magnesium, iodine, etc., all from just your salt. The truth, however, is that all the salt brands are going to contain far too little of the beneficial trace minerals to provide you with any benefit. Now, most people will stop there in their critique of trace minerals and salt. However, there's more to the story. It's not that trace minerals don't matter, it's that they will probably be a detriment to your health, because not only will you be getting the good minerals, you will also be getting the bad. You might need a lot of the good minerals for them to be beneficial, but as we learned with lead, very little of the bad minerals can have an impact on you and will accumulate in your body over time. These harmful minerals will be things like lead, but also sulfur, aluminum, cadmium, mercury, arsenic, and so on. You'll need to see the salt company's testing results on what's in their salt. Make sure to convert their numbers to parts per billion so you have a better idea of how much is in there. The problem with salt is that it tends to clump together, making it difficult to sprinkle onto your food. To solve this problem, companies have added chemicals called anti-caking agents to their salt. When those are present, you can pour your salt with ease. Examples of anti-caking agents are yellow prussiate of soda, silicon dioxide, calcium silicate, iron ammonium citrate, sodium alumino silicate, and tricalcium phosphate. There doesn't seem to be much research indicating that these things are toxic at the amounts we would eat them. However, they are certainly not good for us, and they do become toxic at a high enough load, and for that reason alone, we should eliminate them as best as we can. There is some indication that for some of them, they may accumulate in the kidneys and liver and perhaps other organs. With some or even all of the anti-caking agents, it seems that there really isn't enough data to say one way or the other regarding their toxicity, so for that reason we should also minimize them in our diet. Some of them are composed of things we do recognize as toxic, such as aluminum or cyanide, which would be harmful if they separated from the compound. Research suggests that this is unlikely to happen, but we should act as if it is going to happen. Therefore, my recommendation when it comes to anti-caking agents is that we should only buy salt that does not contain them. To see if they contain them, simply check the ingredients list on the back of the product. We're supposed to think that iodized salt is better for us because it will help our thyroid. However, if you look closely at the ingredients of an iodized salt, you will see the ingredient called potassium iodide. What potassium iodide does is prevent the release of thyroid hormone in the body, shrinks the size of your thyroid, and prevents the uptake of iodine. In other words, if you take enough potassium iodide for long enough, you will eventually get hypothyroidism, which causes fatigue, weight gain, cold sensitivity, pain, bad skin and hair, slowed heart rate, infertility, and depression. Potassium iodide that a mother ingests will go to the breast milk, so a newborn who is consuming the breast milk of a mother who consumes potassium iodide, will also suffer the thyroid suppression effects of this compound. It should now be clear how bad it is for your salt to be iodized. I recommend making sure that whatever salt you eat has not been iodized and does not contain the ingredient potassium iodide. So to sum up, the ideal salt will be low in lead, microplastics, and trace minerals, and it will not contain any added anti-caking agents or potassium iodide. Based on my research, the healthiest salt brand I can find is Jacobsen's Oregon Sea Salt. It has only 20 parts per billion of lead, which is the lowest I've ever seen. The company filters microplastics down to 0.5 microns, which is also the lowest I've ever seen. And it contains a minimal amount of trace minerals and contains no added potassium iodide or anti-caking agents. Plus, it tastes great. Living where I do, I unfortunately don't have affordable access to Jacobsen's sea salt, so I had to look for another brand. The best brand that works for me is called Vancouver Island Sea Salt. They also have a lead content of 20 parts per billion, which is super low. They filter microplastics down to 5 microns, which is higher than Jacobsen's, but there's not much I can do about that. Furthermore, it has a minimal amount of other trace minerals, and the company actually tests for more of these than Jacobsen's, which gives this brand an advantage in that regard, at least. Finally, Vancouver Island Sea Salt contains no added potassium iodide or anti-caking agents. Some people I know who've tried this brand of salt agree with me that it has a great taste. So, before you buy your salt, do your research. Look at the product descriptions and email companies asking them how much their salt contains lead, other trace minerals, and microplastics. Then go with the best salt you have available and can afford. It will take some extra work going through this process, but every little thing that can improve your health is worth it. If you thought this video provided value and you would like to support me, smash that like button, subscribe, and send me a donation or ask a question or even request a consultation from my Buy Me a Coffee link in the description. The more you help my channel, the more we can help the world become healthier. Make healthy choices, especially when you don't feel like it.